got to unmute. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Jeffrey. What's happening?
Hope you're well on this end of summer gasp that we got going on here.
I know, the last day. Here we are, August 31st, man. Unbelievable.
Weird.
Flying through. My kids just finished their third week of school because LA Unified starts real early. August 12th, their first day.
Yeah, so, most people here are be after Monday then. So
yeah, a lot of schools. Well, some of our schools started not last week, but the week before. That's the Las Virgenes district. That's kind of bordering where I live.
Right.
But they're doing good. They're just it's more me getting used to the schedule than the kids.
So always the parents. Oh, I got dogs barking. I don't know if you can hear that.
Oh, that's all right. No,
yeah, they're gonna howl.
That's the reality of dogs.
It's probably Amazon.
Oh,
it's working home. You can hear the barking types now. It's like, it's got to be Amazon or that's a dog. You know.
That's the 21st century alarm for deliveries is your dog barking. Right?
Yeah, we used to get all worried someone's breaking in the house, and now we're like, it's probably a vacuum cleaner or something to drop it off.
That's right.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to today. We're talking about some drags and diddles and ruffs and all that good stuff. Huh?
Ruffs and drags and diddles, yeah, all that good stuff to tune up the inside of the hand. If you're doing rudiments, those are kind of core things that you can do to engage better squeezes and push and pulls inside your hand. So, there's variables of strategies to get them to come out. If you look at the hand in totality, it's doing the same thing no matter what your movement is. You
True.
can, in other words, you can come down and get a double like this, and you're dropping in with more of a molar delivery, and you're going to get like this open close value to the stroke.
Yeah.
And then if I come up, I get the same thing on my upstroke value, the little open close value. And then if I'm doing a tap stroke, just dropping from the wrist forward, I get that same value. And then I always say that in the world of doubles, the tap stroke, you have two variables. You have either a reset of where you're going to be back up here, like if you were playing doubles here, those are from the wrist. But if I was doing something where this is going to sit idle for a moment, and then its next move is going to be an upstroke, then I don't need to launch back and draw back into my turning position. And, so what's my point on that is that all four of those represent the same mechanics on the inside of the hand. And then, you can also talk about those are deliveries. Well, my doubles with my tap strokes were wristed. I can get that, to also have a certain thrust. So if I come down from a molar, I can get what I would call a kick up. If I do it from a wrist, I can get a wrist thrust. And if I do it from my forearm, I can get the push to what would be the push pull. Again, all the operating system on the inside is on the inside of the hand is the same, and it's just those different deliveries.
Well, I've had some lessons from you, so we've gone through this, but I'm looking forward to this because I always think, in a way, I always overthink this. But you're right, we're already doing these motions on some level.
Essentially, yeah, but when you put them in different arrangements, so your head may not be able to assess like all those nuances or variables and see it in the same light of the other thing. And maybe you do, but maybe you just haven't like acquired the reflex to respond. I mean, intellectually, and I've said this before in other forums, you can get anybody to understand something intellectually. Okay, that's easy. Oh, yeah, that's so reasonable. Of course. But you're fighting your reflexes.
Right.
And to restructure that is not only the physical thing, but it's the mental thing. The awareness has to create a new circuit board upstairs, up here, because you're so conditioned to pick up sticks and just play music. And the consideration of technique now may not have been in the forefront of what you're doing. You're just trying to play music and you're trying to get through. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't thinking about that. It was like, when we played Space Truck and we were just going, but up, but ba 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 and just playing. I don't know what I was doing.
No.
Just imitating what I heard. You don't give that a lot of consideration. Well, if you take that sort of that idea and go forward with it, years later, you might run yourself into a little bit of a cul-de-sac where you can't break out. And you've acquired some inefficient ways of approaching the drum set. And so, my game is to like loosen things up and put the WD-40 conceptually into the elbow or the wrist and into the finger so things move well. Because I'll go and default to that classic Freddie Gruber line. It's a good one, which is, it's not what you do, it's how you do what you do. So that's my good morning, Freddie. No, so the arrangement of things is
Cassie
so important. Hey, Cassie, what's going on? It's so important to kind of put forward a structural layout to how things can move so that you can systematically start to make those changes more effectively in your playing and loosen up. If you're trying to play one-handed 16th notes and you don't have like that format of your hand set up and you're pumping along with your 16th notes and things are starting to kind of break down after the 9th bar, that's not helpful. That doesn't mean you're going to get like a free pass if you just practice Moeller a couple of times a week. You got to systematically practice it and play and work on it so that the stamina is accessible. I think, didn't Jeff Porcaro say something about that when he was doing Keep Forgetting, that he was like, kind of like, holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is always good to hear that someone like Jeff would be holding on for dear life.
That's a tempo that I think, that doesn't come easy. That's sitting around 95 or 96 beats per minute to play that for that 4-minute amount of time or whatever, it's pretty impressive, man. And his feel on that is exquisite. I mean, it's just so like the epitome of like one of the greatest Jeff Porcaro grooves, which there are many, but that's like one where
that's why everybody wants to play Roseanne,
right.
Roseanne.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, I'm gonna hide behind the scene here in a minute, but John McKenna's here, and I'm not. So you were playing some rudiments at the beginning, and I think you said, "Can you give a recorded example of these rudiments by Popular Tunes?" So I'm not really sure what that means.
Recorded example of these rudiments by Popular. Well, if you're talking about like rudiments, I mean, you could take little snippets of different things and say, "Oh, there's something," like if I'm not mistaken, the fill that Ringo does out of Please Please Me into the bridge would be right. Yep. Okay, so there's 4-stroke Ruffs. Okay, so there's an example. If you're talking about what Gadd's doing in 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, you've got that. Okay, so what is that? Well, that would be just like a little double in front of that figure, and then it becomes a 5-stroke roll in the next round. So it's so a 5-stroke roll. It's hard to like put exactly like everything into a perfect translation from the rudimental thing and you're playing. But as I always say, it's not about that. You're just tuning up your chops so that they're working. You could say, again, that's not rudimental, but the push to pull can be further drawn forward for sensitivity of feeling the stick in a different way and having the sensitivity on the fingerprints and all those little nuances to make the expression and the feel and the impact even more of a body experience in a different way. But so what's my point? Practicing 3-stroke Ruff paradiddles. Whoops. Yeah, they're a little rusty this morning, but I'll just stay on one side so I can just... That kind of a thing. Okay, I'm drawing into the third of the 3 strokes. There would be 2 grace notes in front of a bunch of 16th notes. And for just an easy practical demonstration, I'm playing 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So on that third stroke, I'm pulling into my hand. I'm getting a quick, sharp snap. Okay, that's good for certain things. If you're playing, like if you're looking at playing a fast shuffle, I would use that push-pull all night long. I wouldn't want to go, that's really belabored, that Moeller thing. So again, there's a heightened awareness of like how you can use that squeeze into practical settings. So another just analogy I would use is, as a longtime practicer of yoga, I'm not walking out to the corner of my neighborhood and doing a downward dog, but I practice it because, one, it gives me a better sense of flexibility, and it brings about, of course, when you practice, a level of equanimity and a little bit more of a relaxed body posture to what you're doing. And that translates into, I feel a little more tolerant and peaceful in the jungle out there, as you approach driving around on the streets, and, you get aggravated easy. We live in a high stress world. So whatever you can do to condition yourself to modulate around that. Absolutely. So
playing stressed is really hard. I mean, trying to play with any kind of tension is really, really detrimental.
Yeah, so exactly. If your head is centered on, oh man, this is so tense, you're kind of transmitting that whether you know it or not. Okay, if you're able to kind of streamline what you're doing in your movement and how you're addressing your timekeeping systems for groove and to express the feel, and you're not clogged with the thoughts of, oh, I can't get this out, or I'm so tense, now you're getting closer to what it is, just putting it out there.
And John says, well, I use Tai Chi for anything you can use. And then that's why you see some guys will regulate and say, I'm good with a rum and Coke at the beginning of a gig. And they're trying to find some other means to kind of take that out of their, you're trying to take it out of your playing a little bit. You can go too far, of course.
Sure.
But I do that. I'll give me a rum and Coke for one gig and I'm fine. You know what I mean? Just kind of just take that edge off a little bit. Some people can do it without that.
Some people can do it. Some people can't. It really depends on. I'm not promoting or not promoting. I just say, for me, the healthier lifestyle was not to do that. And right. I didn't on gigs. Well, I might have a beer, but it wouldn't be before the gig. It would be like in the middle of the gig when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, man, that sounded great. Can I buy you a beer? And you go, yeah, okay, I can do that.
Well, the problem is a lot of people couldn't regulate. And so they don't stop at one.
Well, I worked with a lot of those guys. I worked with some guys like that.
Oh, God, me too.
Some gals, too. It was like
to bring the drinks. And I work really good about just setting them off the side and thanking them. Good.
I was talking to my student about this. He played a gig and he just said it was really weird because it was a later gig starting around like 10:30 or maybe 11ish or something like that. And he just said the energy was weird. And his assessment was really, it was drunk energy.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that was challenging for me when I was playing in bars was that kind of energy. Well, I appreciate people going out to cut loose. My first priority was to play really good music and, collectively work with the band. And of course, that should be the sort of the thing. And then transmit that good feel to your listening audience. Okay. And I don't know if you get a real qualified listener if they're a little tanked, you know what I mean?
It's a bit of a downer and it just becomes a little bit more of a competing entities.
For like, so when I would do gigs with my brother, that was a different scene because now you're doing more of like a club thing and a set. You're doing, your jazz stuff. And when you're like the cover band, you're just kind of there to supply the vibe so people get more alcohol. And
you're the juice. You're really squeezing the juice. And that's, over the last many years, we've been doing more and more theater gigs. I've really come to appreciate theater gigs because people are there to listen and the exact same thing you're saying. There's something about that. They're there to listen first and get a different vibe as opposed to covering Jack and Diane for the 1 millionth time at a bar for some wedding. But all right, I'll let you get on with the drags and whatever's. And if anybody has any questions, I will I'll throw them your way.
and just throw it down to me.
I will do it, sir.
Okay. So, a couple things to think about for those ideas are what I was speaking about at the top, the different deliveries, etc. If I was just sort of putting a little path together, my first operating system would be to focus on the doubles. And those are going to be part of what we would call diddles, doubles, depending upon how they're laid out, double stroke rolls, that's what they are. And in the double stroke roll setting, you're going to have an exit and an entrance, or an entrance and an exit to the roll, depending upon the context or the layout of the roll. If I did a long roll, depending upon how it was laid out and tempo and setting, most probably be met with coming in, dropping into the roll, not accenting it, or accenting it, depends on. If I go through some of the literature that I like to use for my students as well as myself out of the Charles Memphis contemporary percussionist, a lot of his rules are met with an accent. So then you do want to get a little sharper attack on the first note. That being said, you could also still come down and not get an accent. So on this demonstration, I'm just going to play a long roll, and I'm going to play it, make it even longer. I'm going to play it over 16th note triplets, though, with doubles. So my outline would be 1E, N-E, 2E, N-E, 3E, N-E, 4E, N-E, 1. And when I come down, 1E, N-E, 2E, N-E, 3, 4, 1. So I came down, I gave it an accent because I'm just following some of the protocols in the Charles Memphis book. But let's do it without an accent and play it this way. Okay, and that up, tap, down is just giving me the punctuation mark to put forward the end of the roll and go, oh, that's the end of the roll. And the punctuation mark could be either assigned with a period or an exclamation point. The exclamation point would obviously be the accent, and the period just stopping the roll. And that would be defined for like most every roll. But let's not worry about lengths of rolls. Let's worry about, getting the inside of the hand to be responsive to your double strokes. So in order to do that, you'd want to filter into how those fingers can be bonded with the stick and move with every little knock to the pad. So if I knock that pad and I go, bop, there's my fingers open, and I could drop back in. That would be a bounce to a turn. That would be one quality exercise that I would put forward, whereby I could build upon the recognition of the turn and the wrist, which is quite valuable to the execution of rolls. If you're just pushing them down kind of into the pad and you have a perpetual release, doesn't do anything for your anatomy, and it certainly doesn't do anything for the tone. And I don't want to go the other extreme and say like, well, let's snap the second stroke into the hand, because I don't want to overdrive it. I want to make it nice and round and easy and not fight. Right? I don't want to add tension and kind of get it a little more brittle and staccato-y. To me, that's not the idea of a roll that I want to put forward. So when you're working on doubles, those are things to think about. And then as I demonstrated also at the top, the downstroke double and the upstroke double, to be clear on how those can play into it. So if I'm just doing a downstroke and an upstroke, there I am, nice and easy. And I'll go back and step into one other zone for a moment and just say, when I'm doing that, there's a setup, there's a value of flexing the hand and kind of sculpting it like a piece of clay so that the hand is in recognition of pressure points and placement. So, to conform your hand or shape it in 1 second doesn't really work. You'll go back to your other bad habits. You may find yourself cradling the stick like this, and maybe, I don't want to say white knuckling it, but when you're kind of holding it like this, the stick can't really breathe inside the hand. When you're in a mode of sitting where the fingers can flex and move, much better. But to draw upon this shape and to kind of design it, there's a lot of things that I would do to really make it work and stick. And, if you were in my fold as a student, you'd understand what I'm talking about. And I have hundreds, perhaps thousands of students. I know through my Drumeo course that I did. I didn't work on the inside of the hand, but I did do more of the movement to get the essence of the choreographing of how you can move through different stickings. And I've had multiple, thousands of responses to that video course, which is still available on Drumeo. I always say, though, it was 26 weeks. If I really did what I do, it would be 126 weeks. And don't look at that as like, oh, my God, I got to take that long. But honestly, the path of redirecting and changing and putting yourself on a consistent trajectory upward is really valuable. You can't change those things with just one calisthenic or 5 calisthenics. What do I mean by that? If I'm playing like my paradiddle flow, the paradiddle flow, it's a great exercise, but you want to have the build up to that, all the little constructive hand exercises that help to set that up so that it works effectively and efficiently. And that when you're playing the paradiddle, that your level of equanimity and feeling how that stick can bounce and come right back to you and understanding the upstroke values is just there without any thought. So anyway, back to, getting the upstroke double, downstroke double, and putting that together. That would be one element of what you'd want to do. Those upstrokes and downstrokes would exist in all the orchestrations of any of the other rudiments, whether it's single paradiddle, double paradiddle, Rudiments, flam taps, flam accents. All those choreographed moves are certainly rather important. And then once you understand how they move, then you organize some nice flows, So, for example, for my paradiddle page, I've got a few different arrangements, but let's just go with the shorter one. I've got what I call the new paradiddle sequence, and it starts with just a single paradiddle. And then the second one would be a paradiddle, diddle, diddle. And the third one would be a paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle. And the fourth one would be paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, diddle. I probably wouldn't want to speak that out. I'd probably want to sit more in a tracking headspace to fine-tune the count and knowing where I am and really sit and spotlight every stroke of what I'm doing. So I would have that 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. And then the last one, I've demonstrated this in a few different arenas. This would be combinations of my 7, 7, 5, 5, 3, 3, 2. So the 7 is built on paradiddle, 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 diddle, paradiddle, 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 diddle. Right. So if I count that out in 16th notes and just count the 8th notes and play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. With the 16th notes, it would be a little challenging, but 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. So that's how we come to the conclusion of the numeric value to that exercise. And then the 5, paradiddle and a paradiddle diddle, 1E and a 2E and a, I'm sorry, why am I saying 1E and a 2E? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and etc. And the 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a paradiddle diddle. And of course the 2, paradiddle, 1 and 2 and. But I don't want to sit in number systems. I do to understand the value of those punctuation marks, but I want to also count it out. So I'd want to go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. So now I'm a little bit more inside where the bars are, the 2-bar phrase. Or in that case, 4-bar phrase. Sorry, I'm thinking also of my molar thing. I do that in a molar setting as well. And now you're, inside what's going on. And, how you use that's going to be contingent upon what kind of musical settings you're in. But all the diddles and how they're bouncing, right? If I play a paradiddle diddle, there's a constructive move to that to add to how the diddle can move inside the hand. Again, there's a molar element to that, and there's a pivot and a draw back into my hand. And then, of course, the left hand's got to really sit and find its gap, or find the gap in between the right hand to filter in a reasonably good bounce to it, because you don't want this. A big right hand move and a tippy-tappy stroke with the left hand. That's not going to be helpful to the design or the development of your left hand or right hand as well. So you want to be able to open up those strokes so everything's got a full, nice, open-bodied tone to it. So for paradiddles, they're quite helpful to get the working value of the stick seesawing inside the hand effectively and moving those fingers around. If I go to, though, taking it up a notch and get that draw of the push-pull inside my hand, I could go into the 3-stroke ruff, which would be a push to a drop and a pull or a close, because I'm not going to really pull my forearm up on that. I'm going to just cascade and drop in. When I first start, I wouldn't do any molar, things like that. I'm just going to drop. I want to feel that the weight of my arms following the weight of the stick mechanically can produce that 3-stroke Ruff. So that's right, left, right. And the third stroke is the accent. I don't want to go and throw it down. I want to bite at the end of that. And so, you know, once you get the essence of that lift and drop, and there's a little bit of a, what I would say, like a counterintuitive approach to that, whereby you want to lift the middle stroke higher than the downbeat stroke. So in other words, right, left, right. My right hand's going to be lower. So when I just drop into it, I can get that left hand to fall in between that open to close that I have. That's counterintuitive. You got to think about that one and kind of put that into play. When you play it faster, it's going to be a little bit maybe of a slight turn with the left hand to fit in front of my right hand. When I'm doing those, there's, again, a limitation of what I would do with my forearm to not indulge in that molar-y thing because it's not necessary. I need to get a more direct drive approach to this bite. Okay, so what does that play into? Well, you could do these hertas that are built on 5-note stickings. Now this would have more of an enunciated molar-esque drive, and the first of those 3 strokes would have the accent. Does it help to take one hand at a time in order to learn these hand and wrist motions, or do? Excellent question. Yes, you want to spotlight the individual mechanics of each hand so that your understanding and your tracking and your full feel is there and really inside all that. And then you do the left, and then you start to put it down together. At first, you might feel a little disoriented when you're doing both hands. However, you know, practice will bring the level of equanimity up so that you can sit above it and see how things are now playing, and your ability to process both movements will come together nicely. But no, I'm a big proponent of just sitting and really working that one hand at a time. But it's always a building process. I don't just sit on that one hand. It's like, okay, let's do the right, let's do the left, then let's start to build them up together. So in other words, let me take a step back. If I was doing the 3-stroke Ruff setup, I would play them slow. I would play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Notice the length of my lift. That 8th note of and, that's a long note. We don't have long notes in drums. Here's a whole note. Now let me play a dotted half note. And for my third part of my composition, I'm going to play a dotted quarter note. And for my grand finale, I'm going to play a dotted 16th. No sustain. But here, when you lift, you can become way more conscientious of the space value to what's going on time-wise. So everything that I do choreographed-wise would sit in a very specific rhythmic layout, and understanding that and the minutia of movement really pulls together so that your flow is absolutely there, and you'll feel it. You'll know exactly how that steps out there. You know. Anyway, so if I did my 3-stroke Ruff, I'd play 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then maybe I'd lift up and do the opposite side, and 3, and 4, and then I would alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would start in front of 16th notes. Let's just do one of the few that I would do. I'll just play 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3 E and a paradiddle. So I'd start with one side. I did play a paradiddle to push it around to the left-hand lead, but eventually you'd want to play it as 3-stroke rough paradiddles. Whoops. And get that to be accessible when you're playing that. Again, usage in music, can't say that you're going to sit around and put that into a solo, maybe, but use your imagination. I know that when I think back to this one great drummer, my friend Mike, great old friend of mine for many, many years, I would sort of dub him as my musical mentor. He shared with me a lot of stuff I had no clue about. Like, I remember going over there at one point and he'd go like, "You ever hear Alvin Jones with John Coltrane?" I'm like, "No." "You ever hear Tony Williams with Miles?" "No." But, I heard Tony Williams because I had Tony Williams's solo record, Believe It. But I didn't know any of the body work that Tony had done with Miles. That's a completely different element of Tony's musical career and path. Anyway, he shared with me a great guitar player by the name of Harvey Mandel. And the drummer on that, Paul Lagos. And actually the bass player was, I can't think of his first name, Victor Conti, was the cousin of the great guitar player in Tower Power, Bruce Conti. And I think Victor did play in Tower Power in the later 70s. But Victor was the bass player on this record with Harvey Mandel on guitar. And then the drummer, Paul Lagos. And Paul was a student of Freddie Gruber's and also a student of Philly Joe Jones a little bit before. I don't know how deep he went with Philly Joe, but there's one tune that he's playing, and he does these little fills between the snare and the tom. So the groove is like, and there's your use for it. Now, is he dragging it? I don't think so. It sounds like single strokes where it's a right, left, right, and a right, left, right. Did he alternate? I don't know. I wasn't in the studio. But again, use your imagination to how that can work into your performance if it's something that you hear. You can't play what you don't hear. But again, the fine-tuning of the mechanics of the rudiments are there to assist your flow and your feel for what you can do. You can sit back and stay pedestrian, but you can also fine-tune some of the nuance. Like if you were playing some rock grooves, the ghost notes can be quite interesting to put in against your regular 8th note groove or 16th note groove or whatever you're doing. And those little squeeze and grabs of what you can do with drags might be a cool ticket to put in there for your performance. So for that 3-stroke rough, I'll go back and just say one more thing about that. When I play this, I'm a little more driven from my forearm. Again, like I showed before, if I do that 5-note Herta or a 3-note Herta, I'm going to have a little bit of, this kind of molar thing. But it's not a large amount of wrist in there. The molar thing for 16th triplets, that's going to be definitely there. But so those, they got again, like a practical usage. Those are in 16th notes. I would also indulge in the triplet versions of those as well. All right, so let's go on to the next thing. If I'm playing those 3-stroke roughs, what's my next thing? Drags. Drags 2 grace notes in front of a dominant note. The difference is that now the drag is even more concentrated in its pull because you have left, left, right, or right, right, left, where before you had right, left, right, left, right, left. So there's this little gap between your push to pull or your bounce to close, or however you want to frame it in terms of some kind of a directive or description. So when I play the drag, that is codependent on this. In other words, my double left is posted right in front of my dominant note, like a flam. So I want to get the bite out of that to really sit right in front of my dominant note. And again, that little squeeze Ain't easy to get that happening. But again, the formula of practice and then putting it out there in some kind of calisthenic format will work the great feel of how you're just playing your doubles, right? If you're playing, for me, rock and roll, in my years of playing a lot of cover gigs, thousands, I would say that my approach would be more pedestrian to a degree and just about bringing forward the essence of the tune. So my fills weren't going to be like real high tech, unless I was doing something high tech, but a lot of stuff I did was, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, some modern things like we would do some Matchbox 20 and Third Eye Blind. And I say modern, that's already 20, 25 years ago. But nonetheless, what's my point? I'm hearkening in what the recording was about and trying to push forward that element. I'm not going to redesign it and play a lot of flashy fills. So what's my point? I didn't play a lot of doubles. That didn't really happen. If I did something like, like a Deep Purple or a Mitch Mitchell thing, then yeah, you've got the opportunity to lay that out in that format and have more paradiddle-esque kind of stickings. But everything is always going to be designed to promote a better musicality to what you're doing. So I don't do a lot of diddles in there, although might crop up. If you're doing something kind of a funky disco-y tune where you can get away with it, cool. But so with the drags now, I would do the same design of just playing a left-hand version. I mean, a right-hand version. I'm sorry, the left hand's being the squeeze. And then I would go into, the left-hand version where the grace notes are with the right hand. Now, this would be a little bit more of a lift of a molar lift and drop, right? This easy access to lift and drop. What you don't see is what's going on the inside of the hand, of how I've got my pressure point in the back of the hand to inhale the stick and get that stick to pop. And then I would alternate them, just like you would do alternating flams. And then slowly amass a very large drag sequence that I put together. It's got 7 components. I'll do the first 2 or first 3. So I've got 8th notes. Now these 8th notes, the way they're set up, they're inverted so that I can alternate the downbeats or the numbers. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. With a nice squeeze. The second one is laid out in triplets with the drag on the third partial of the triplet. When I enter, I put a drag on my downbeat, but I only play it as I enter letter B, and then I never play it on that downbeat again. All the drags will be subsequently played on just the third partial of the triplet. So entering my letter B would be 1 and lead 2 and lead 3 and lead 4. Now that drag is coming up. If you look at the layout, and we just get rid of that first drag that I started with on the downbeat, just for the practical analysis of what this is. It's right, and then my drag is left, left, and a right, and then a right, and my drag is a right, right, left. It's an inverted paradiddle. And it moves exactly like an inverted paradiddle, where the diddles in an inverted paradiddle are coming up. The drag is coming up. So 1, lead 2, lead 3, lead 4, lead 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, 1, E, and 2, E, and 3, E, and a 4, E, and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, lead 2. So all I did there is I kind of expanded to an inverted paradiddle, and then I kind of drew it in a little bit, playing it like a 6/8, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But look at the doubles are still up. So that goes back to the initial thing that I said at the top, right? You can get things to pull up and down. You got to get comfortable with the setting of an up and down stroke, because that's all you got. I mean, you got tap strokes, but you're lifting up and you're coming down. The final one that I'll just lay out with my drag sequence will be 16th notes with a drag in front of it. And I would lay it out like 2 different references I would point out. First, let's just take a random cue and do that. So you've got down, tap, tap, up, and down, tap, tap, up, and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. And if we do look at the random cue, there are two versions of a single random cue. One where the accent is on the first partial of 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and. Or the second one where the accent's on the and, the last partial of that. In that case, I'm playing it as 16th note triplets, 1 E and. So the and my accent would be on the upstroke. Challenging, not easy to do. But the layout of the movement is the same. It's the same layout. Of course, it's now seamlessly played with 16th notes, and there's no gap, as in the case of the 16th triplets. And the other way I would point it out is that it's the fourth version of the single paradiddle. If you go to stick control, you look at your 4 paradiddle variables, you got 5 regular paradiddle, 6 inverted paradiddle, number 7 reverse paradiddle, number 8 the second inversion, where the diddle is split between the two subgroupings, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and up, down, up, down, up, down. And in between my up and my down, I have just enough space to put my drag in there. So that's a nice little sequence. And if I played it down, I think I have a YouTube video where I do this. I'll just do the 3 of them. So I'll do them in 2-bar phrases. We have 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, lead 2, lead 3, lead 4, lead 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 1, lead 2 and lead 3, lead 4 and lead 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So now you may start to feel a little more, of that squeeze value in there. And when you're going for your fast paradiddle diddle diddles, those doubles, right, should feel real easy to acquire now and pull right into the hand. Okay, is it all about speed? No, it's about fluidity. Your level of tempo is not really the bigger acquisition. It'd be nice, but you want to be able to play what you hear and design some phrasing that will accommodate up-tempo stuff. Again, can't play what you don't hear. Having the tools and getting your fingers and your wrists and your forearms and your deliveries to be accessible and work, that'll start to open up, ideas, And then, of course, with a good quality level of calisthenics to kind of format how you're moving and how those are working on the inside of the hand, that starts to open up the idea door. Oh, hey, I could do this. Wow, I never could do that before. It's called practice. So you got to just sit and do that regularly and kind of involve yourself in that headspace. That's what's the fun thing about the instrument. It's a very, introspective and self-effacing and rewarding experience to sit and practice, If you come in clumsy on the sticks, but you walk out at the end of the practice session, you're like, woo, man, everything's flowing. Great. So one other thing that I would put forward, like with, the idea of this pull, where we're getting, in this case, I'm doing what I would label a 5-stroke ruff. So it's 5 strokes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll just do it with one lead where I stay with the right hand. It's basically taken out of stick control. It's on page 31. This would be number 25. Look at the accessible lift of my forearms that I have at my disposal. Because I don't want to sit down here and go, hard for me to do it in a, let's say, a corrupted value because I'm so conditioned. So that's kind of even a poor example of a poor example. But we want to be able to slide into. So I was talking to a guy last week. I'll keep his identity anonymous. But he was saying, you know, he's gotten so conditioned to playing rim shots that when he practices, he's kind of always sitting on the shoulder of the stick. And he said he was working on getting to the tips. And he said it was challenging because he's so conditioned to do that. There are thresholds of our positions that we want to adhere to. When I'm playing faster, I want to lift up. If I want to not overstimulate the rebound, then if I draw my forearm up a little bit, I'm going to inhibit the kind of rebound that I get. If my rebound is overstimulated because I drop below a certain threshold, I'm working against the weight of the stick. Not good. But there's sometimes where you're just in the hand for vibe and posture gesture where you can sit here. Right? I mean, that's what I would call posture and gesture. There's no, it's got to be pretty and perfect, and you got to stay on the tips. You just got to do what you got to do. But in the, you know, the years of persevering and pushing forward, you do want to refine things and have the proper setups where things will work easier for you, right? All right, I've said this, I don't know how many times, but enough. But let's put it on this video. When I was a kid, and Freddie Gruber would say, Bruce, when they ask you how you do that, tell them easily. And he would always accentuate that. So, you know, the essence of all this stuff is to make it feel easy to access. If you're working against like tension in your bicep or tension in your elbow or tension in your shoulder, you got to figure out what's going on so you can fix and work around that, because that's not going to be helpful at the end of the day. Now, I ain't no spring chicken, but my hands and feet and my general posture in playing, and I'm sitting on the seat Monday through Friday for hours and hours a day, right? Teaching. And then I'll turn around and once in a while I'll get a chance to like think about me for a minute instead of cleaning up the masses. But I've got no debilitating stuff, you know, like the hands feel better than ever, the quality of the stroke. One thing I always try to put forward too is that the identity of loose is absolutely a commodity. It's a commodity, but you don't want to be so loose that you don't get a point or what I would say a density out of your stroke. You need density, right? If you're playing time, you want to be able to bite the cymbal a little bit so that it's got a bite to the time. It's not smushy, mushy, and kind of like eggs cracking on the floor. Okay, so that means that on the inside of the hand, you got to work on your pressure points and how that breath inside the hand, the release or the relaxing point to the impact, how those guys work together, the timing value of that, right? Timing value of this upstroke, where I can pull that stick easily off the pad without resetting it and going way back here and then trying to pull up. I'm here, right here, right? No anticipation, and make use of that stroke. So, does it help to sing these rudiments in order to remember them and associate the right sticking? Yeah, so to a degree, it depends on what I'm doing. There's a lot of directives that I would speak out. Maybe not for the roughs and the drags as much, maybe just counting them out. But if I was working on my paradiddles, absolutely. You know, for the single paradiddle, it would be down, up, double. But even going a little more to the minutia, I might say pivot. Now, pivot's a two-syllable word, so that would cancel out my attention to the upstroke. So I just take the word pivot, slice off the OT, put an up, pivot. pivot, pivot, pivot. And if I want to be attentive to the double, pivot, double, pivot, double, how that double just comes right back to me without any fussing and fighting. But I would work each individual hand at first to identify those movements very carefully, and then reassemble or assemble, but reframe the directive in a way that brings in both hands to the sphere of observation. Same thing with the double paradiddle. If I play a double paradiddle with one accent, 1 inley, 2 inley, 3 inley, 4 inley, 1 inley, 2 inley, 3 inley, 4 inley, 1, I would sit in there and really identify my strike to get that single accent where the stick is popping to me. And I could go even one step further. I could say strike, tap, tap, up, double, strike, tap, tap, up, double, or a little bit more into the weeds, strike, tap, drop. So that is not a push, it's a actual drop. I'm in this nice squeezed position, and then I let go after I play my following tap stroke note after my strike. Strike, tap, drop, up. I can't speak it that fast. I can on some days I'm really good about speaking everything out. For doubles, absolutely. I would speak out for, like, example. I'll do this one thing that I do. I'm going to play down, tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap, down, tap, up, tap. Now, all my doubles on the right side are going to be a pivot catch, drop, and a drop pull. Pivot catch, drop pull, pivot catch, drop pull. And in between, I could have a bounce and a turn. So I could say pivot catch, bounce, turn, drop, pull, bounce, turn, pivot catch, bounce, turn, drop, pull, bounce, turn. Okay. At a slow rate of speed, you're able to speak that out. But it's rather important to do these slow so that you feel the elasticity of the mechanics on the inside of the hand. And by applying some description to what's going on, that tracking is spot on with what's going on and how you're moving. So, and it's all built for, eventually putting it together to time keeping exercises. And that's our quest, Don't walk to a gig with a pad and start doing rudiments when you're playing to a band. You're on your drum set. So we need to take all those nuts and bolts and properly assign them around the kit to work on different approaches to keeping time. And then through that, you'll have a couple of things in your back pocket to make a shift and change on the fly if something doesn't feel right. So let's see where we're at time-wise. We're approaching the end of the hour here. So one thing I wanted to say is that, if you're at all interested in what I'm doing here, I'm going to be looking to doing a specialty of kind of a course thing with those who would be interested. In other words, like a concierge approach. And that would be a pretty high-level, intricate group of people that I'd be looking to work with. And it would be assigned for you to work a little bit on your own time, but you have to come in and check in with me, right? So I haven't worked out a whole operating system of how I'm going to do this, but I'm working towards that. If anybody's interested, just go to my website and send me an email. If you're interested in just studying, you can do the same thing. I'm always, my schedule is always kind of, it's got the group of guys that I have. I work every other week, and with like one group of people, and then the next week with another. I usually work every other week. That's how it works with my students. But if you are interested, by all means, send me an email, and I'll see if I can find a spot for you. I work with various people all over the world, so I have, time zones are a big consideration, and you got to just let me know where you are in your time zone so I can see if there's a spot for you. Ray, Bruce, is there any value to using a thicker or heavy stick for some practice routines instead of saying your usual 5A? Yeah, I find that to be very valuable, Ray. I'm a pretty much not a one-stick pony, not a one-trick pony, one-stick pony. But I'll pull out the 5Bs from time to time just to feel a little more weight. I'm very specific about the weight value of my stick. So generally, with my perfect weight is 53 grams or maybe 54, but 53 probably being the optimum arrangement of grams. And so, I When I order sticks from Vic Firth, I'm very specific about that. But I like the 5Bs once in a while just to feel. I'm not going to say that there's any specific value to that from my perspective, because you got to use the tools that you're going to be playing with. And you do want to experience and get into a flow of feeling the weight value of the stick. If you're not in sync with that weight value and how that stick naturally can help to draw you forward. For example, in a molar, let's say a 4-note molar, if I play 1 E and okay, well, that weight is just going to naturally drop forward. I don't need to strike out every note. That would be, if Freddie would say, that would be insane. So I'm just letting it bounce. And if I've created an infrastructure on the inside of my hand to absorb and let my fingers move more like a shock absorber, I can get the locomotive value of my forearm to just be played by the bounce and the weight of the stick. Right? Even on a 2-note. The illusion here looks like, oh yeah, you're doing an upstroke. I'm not doing an upstroke. I'm actually letting the second note collapse. Now, I know you can say, well, that doesn't look like it when you're doing this tempo. Well, you can ask any of my students that I've had in the last, from 2018 when I did this one video. I did it specifically for one student to break something down. And it just colors, in terms of what I'm doing, in a slow motion move, exactly how I describe it. But, that you'd have to hang with me to kind of get inside information to help develop that, put that into a mode so it's usable and you understand it, and now it applies to your one-hand timekeeping exercises. Anyway, that being said, back to Ray's question. 5Bs, yeah, you can use them. I wouldn't say no. I'm just conditioned. I pick up my 5As in the morning and I sit on the pad and try to warm up before I teach, or I sit on the set and try to just get creative and play, make sure all the, the hinges are lubed up and that things are firing a little bit. Not easy, because, when I'm teaching, it's pretty time consuming in terms of my integrity of how I pass on information and my engagement in what I'm doing. And again, you could ask hundreds of my students over the years and get that assessment. But anyway, so, if you're interested, just go to my website. If you're interested in what I use in terms of sticks, 5A double glaze from Vic Firth. Double glaze, a nice tacky lacquer finish to get that stick to sit comfortably inside the hand. No slipping and sliding. Don't like that. As I've gotten older, got drier hands. And one of my students, who sadly passed away just about a few weeks ago, about 7 years ago, he said, hey, have you tried these? And he handed me a pair of the 5A double glaze Vic Firth sticks. And I went, wow, these feel great. And they have not left my hand since. With the other ones that I would use, I was a 55A guy, sometimes an S10, SD10 swinger. Kind of those were my sticks of choice at the time. And every time I pick them up in the morning, it was like slipping and sliding and not kind of catching any traction with the position in my hand. Pull these in, that changed. So I compromised on the girth of the stick, because a 55 would be a little bit thicker, as well as an SD10 swinger, but haven't missed them at all. So if they made them in a lacquer finish, maybe I would investigate, but they don't, as far as I know. So if you are, not a Vic Firth guy, try these out. If you're a Vic Firth guy, try out either a double glaze 5A or a 5B. They make them in both categories. And for me, again, that's the bomb, man. That's like making it real easy for everything to sit in my hand. SD10-9 and SD10s are sweet. Yeah, I was not an SD9 guy, but SD10. And that went way back to the 90s. I was playing those SD10 swingers. I remember when I was playing with Barbara Dennerlein, the great jazz organist, and I'd be playing with those. And what I liked about the maple stick for that kind of a thing is that, the maple is a little more vibrant and resonant than the hickory. Not good for rock and roll because they probably break a little easier. But, in that zone, man, that was awesome playing those sticks. Anyway, so Jeffrey, are you still there? I'm sure you are.
I'm always lurking in the background.
Lurking in the background.
I'm always lurking.
Yeah.
think we're good
So-
at questions, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. So where we at? We hit our witching hour, right?
We're in a witching hour. There was a kind of a off-topic question I was just going to throw back at you here.
There's a guy, Metzok, who put, I have dry hands, double glaze are nice. Tried them after you mentioned them before. No more stick wax. Right on, dude. Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, a big fan. You turned me on to when I was studying with you, the double glaze. I can't order anything that's not double glaze anymore off of it's just, I might as well quit if I have to go back to that.
It's remarkable how it really, truly, transformed.
There you go.
My whole world on that. Okay, wait a minute, sir. I have your book, Ultimate Guidance. Could you share some tips from page 54, exercise G? Thanks so much. Oh man.
Wow.
Okay.
You don't have that memorized?
No. Hang on a second. What's page?
You know what I should have done? I feel so bad, and I'll have to work on this next time. Is I could have just put that up on the screen and then had that ready for you. So
no, that's
cool. I wasn't doing my job. I had time to do that. I should have done that for you.
So
be better next time.
Okay, so the G, you're going to be going that, So what you're trying to do is get the inverted, the little double in the middle too. So if I did a bunch. Let's put it with the exercise. So what I didn't want was, very choppy and very military. There's no video on. I was going to see if there was a video icon to go, yeah, just look at the video in the book. That's a good one, because you're getting this. You don't want to get up, and you don't want to get. So if I played something like, I'll go to page 55 where I go. So that's the example on page 55, the first one. And if I played it more like as I was taught when I was a kid, it would have been more like. And I didn't like that. I wanted it to be. Like the doubles are kind of filling in around the accent structure as best you can. So, and it's not easy to kind of pull that in, especially with the quintuplets. Because they don't really line up with where the actual third partial of a triplet would. The downbeat would, but not the third partial. Anyway, Cassie, I hope that helps you out on that particular page.
I think we're good on questions. At this point, we're caught up.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
That's really good. I always have like these people go through those phases. You're talking about like I'll think, oh, my drags sound really good and really tight, but then you start putting those triple like. You get that triple Rudiments going. You're like, oh man, the third one's not consistent. The second one's not consistent. And that's one of those things where I just have to slow it down and really feel it.
Yeah, just remember the placement of your grace note is the most important thing. So the other notes, you don't have to be whizzing along real fast. If you were playing the one drag exercise I put forward, the 16th notes, it doesn't have to be. It could be. But the placement of my grace notes is the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a flam. You wouldn't take a flam and reposition it and go like, hey, I'm going to practice slow flams.
That's an exciting.
It'd be like that grace note would be in the same spot in front of the note all the time. So
great.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, Good to see you, and thanks for co-hosting and putting the questions up there. The
Absolutely.
man lurking behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to that man behind the curtain. Yes, pay attention to that man behind the curtain because he's making all this shit happen down the backside.
Oh, he's trying. He's a little out of practice, but he's trying to get it together today. And it's good to get back. We've been talking about trying to do these more often, and it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Get everybody kind of synced up and conditioned to doing these more often.
Yes, sir.
And to be honest, I've taken lessons from you. I took them for years, and I was sitting here watching this. And what happens? I get caught up in this deal, even after all that, and I start noodling around, watching, looking at, and I get lost. So I got to be careful to pay attention to my job behind the curtains. But it's okay. I'm still learning all the time.
That's right, man.
Thank you, everybody, for jumping on, and thanks from Denmark, Junker on drums. Huh? I don't know if I've ever seen Junker on drums drop in here before.
Nice, thank you. I don't know. I don't remember that moniker of Junker on drums, but thank you, man. All the way.
Always love to see somebody from Denmark. Wow. And of course, Forte drummer. I've seen you both.
Forte.
Yep. Chad. And thank you so much, Chad, and everybody. I saw some lurkers back there, and it's always good to have the lurkers doing their thing. And that's okay if you don't comment. But for everybody who commented today, thank you again for doing so. It was great. Great for seeing everybody. And that was always just incredible information, as always, Bruce. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
All right. So I guess with that, we're out. And,
yes, sir.
Until next time.
Everybody here in the States.
I don't want to dig that Dave out because I haven't seen him in here. So I just want anybody new, I like to pop up because it's like, And of course, John, thank you so much. So with that, I guess we're out of here. Till next time, guys. We'll see you then.
Peace.